5 dark psychology tricks that always work. Psychology facts. Modern Stoic. Dark psychology often appears to be a mysterious and complicated subject, but in truth, its application can be just as intricate as its understanding. The real benefit of studying these psychological strategies is not about using them to manipulate others, but about protecting yourself from being manipulated. Gaining awareness of these tactics equips you with a powerful shield, helping you recognize when others are attempting to control your actions or decisions. By becoming attuned to these hidden strategies, you gain the insight necessary to make independent choices, free from undue influence. As the Stoic philosopher Epictetus wisely stated, wealth consists not in having great possessions, but in having few wants. This idea can be extended to understanding dark psychology. It's not about mastering it for manipulation, but about reducing the mental clutter that makes you susceptible to others' influence. By recognizing these subtle tactics, you can keep your mind clear, calm, and focused on making decisions that align with your true values and desires. Ultimately, knowledge is neither good nor evil. It's the way you choose to use it that determines its impact. When used responsibly, this understanding not only safeguards your mind, but empowers you to live a life that's truly your own. The first trick is social proof. Dark psychology is a fascinating yet complex field, one that helps us understand the power of influence in human behavior. One of the most potent psychological tricks is social proof, which can be seen in real-world situations like this one from 2016. I remember going into a store to buy a smartphone, confident about my choice. However, when I got there, the phone I had planned to purchase was out of stock. The salesman, with a gleam of confidence in his eyes, said, "This is the best phone available at the moment. It's slightly outdated, but for a bit more money, I can get you this model instead." He then pulled the same phone out of his pocket, revealing that he himself used it. Suddenly, the phone's value seemed to increase. Why? Because the salesman's personal endorsement and the notion that someone from such a reputable store used it added a layer of trust and value in my mind. I ended up purchasing it, even though it wasn't necessarily the best option for me. This is a classic example of social proof, a psychological phenomenon where we look to others for guidance when making decisions, especially when we feel uncertain. It's the reason we follow trends, buy the same things our friends do, or gravitate toward the latest fads, even when they may not be the best choice. The influence is even more powerful when it comes from authority figures or people we admire, such as celebrities or influencers. Big marketing agencies are masters at creating fake social proof, like crafting glowing reviews for a movie or product to make us believe it's better than it really is. This tactic capitalizes on our deep-seated need to fit in or make the right decision. Robert Cialdini's book, Influence, The Psychology of Persuasion, explains this phenomenon. In uncertain situations, we tend to look around for clues about what we should do, often relying on the actions of others, especially those we trust, like friends or celebrities, to guide us. This is how social proof operates in the world around us. Think about it. When we meet someone new, we usually form an opinion based on what we've heard from others. Whether it's a friend's recommendation or something we saw on social media, that external validation influences our perception of the person. If you have ever tried to impress someone, you know how powerful this concept can be. Imagine telling your friends about your latest achievements in hopes of impressing a crush. Your friends may not know all the details, but by casually mentioning them, you plant the seed of admiration in the mind of the person you're trying to impress. It's an indirect, yet highly effective way of leveraging social proof. But it's not just about impressing others. This psychological trick is used by marketers to push products, services, and even entire lifestyles. In the digital age, social media plays a huge role in shaping our decisions. The more we see a product or person on our feed, the more likely we are to perceive them as popular, trustworthy, and worthy of our attention. This can be a powerful motivator in pushing us to make purchases or align with certain ideas, whether they're truly beneficial for us or not. The real power of social proof lies in understanding that it's not just about seeing others do something. It's about the perception that others are making a choice we should follow. In many ways, it taps into our natural desire to conform and avoid standing out, especially when we feel uncertain or unqualified. The next time you find yourself making a decision based on what others are doing, take a step back and ask yourself, is this truly the right choice for me, or am I just following the crowd? At the end of the day, manipulation only works when we're unaware of the forces shaping our decisions. By recognizing the power of social proof, you gain the ability to resist its influence and make choices based on what truly aligns with your values, rather than what others are doing. So the next time you're faced with a choice, whether it's a product, a decision, or even a relationship, ask yourself, am I making this choice because it's right for me, or because everyone else is doing it? If this insight resonates with you, let us know in the comments below. How have you experienced social proof in your own life? Have you ever made a decision based on the influence of others? Share your thoughts, and let's continue the conversation. The second trick is love bombing. The second trick in dark psychology is love bombing, a powerful psychological manipulation technique that's often seen in relationships but can be found in many areas of life, such as friendships, family dynamics, school, and even social media. This trick begins with an overwhelming rush of affection, compliments, surprises, and attention, all designed to make the target feel special, loved, and cherished. At first, the target is engulfed by the flood of attention, feeling valued and important. But the true purpose of love bombing is far darker. It creates an intense emotional bond that the manipulator controls. Once the target is emotionally invested and vulnerable, the manipulator suddenly withdraws, cutting back on affection and attention. This withdrawal is subtle yet powerful, leaving the target feeling abandoned, confused, and insecure. Desperate to restore the emotional connection they once had, the target may start to agree to things they would normally reject, things that serve the manipulator's agenda, not their own. The manipulator has now successfully established control over the target, creating a dynamic where the target feels compelled to comply out of fear of losing the affection they once had. This is a psychological tool that operates under the guise of love and care, but it's anything but. In fact, it's one of the most manipulative tactics because it plays directly on the target's emotions and needs. Remember this: true love doesn't need manipulation. If someone is making you feel overwhelmed with affection only to later withdraw, it's time to stop and reassess the situation. Don't fall into the trap of thinking that love equals control. Healthy relationships are built on trust, not on emotional blackmail. In life, whether in friendships or romantic relationships, understanding the dynamics of manipulation is power. You don't have to fall for love bombing. Stand firm in your value and never allow someone to manipulate you into submission through empty promises of affection. Protect your peace and remember the words of Abraham Lincoln, who said, "The best way to predict the future is to create it." The future you want isn't one where you are manipulated or controlled by someone else's agenda. The lesson here is clear. Don't let someone else define your worth. When you recognize the tactics of love bombing, you gain the strength to resist them. And when you resist, you take control of your life and your relationships. It's time to stop being the target of manipulation and start becoming the one who decides what love truly looks like. If you agree, say this now: I deserve real love, not manipulation. Let's take this understanding into the real world. You'll likely encounter people who try to control you with affection or attention. Be aware. Use these psychological insights to protect yourself and make better decisions in your relationships. Know your worth, set clear boundaries, and never settle for anything less than genuine love and respect. You control your life. Take the reins. The third trick is reason persuasion. The third dark psychology trick is the power of reasoned persuasion, a deceptively simple yet incredibly potent technique. Manipulators exploit logical arguments to convince their targets to do what they want, often by presenting seemingly rational justifications that appeal to our innate sense of logic. For instance, imagine two homeless individuals approach you for help. One asks for money, while the other explains that they've been hungry since yesterday and need assistance to get food. What's the likelihood you'll hand money to the second person? The reason they provided, a relatable, urgent need, acts as a persuasive trigger that makes their request seem more legitimate and harder to ignore. This form of persuasion works so well because it taps into our human nature to make decisions based on reason, even if that reason is ultimately manipulated. A person in need, with a clear and compelling justification, is far more likely to gain assistance than one who simply asks without any explanation. Similarly, this tactic is often used in far more dangerous scenarios, like in the world of crime. Take, for example, a mastermind who is planning to rob a bank. They don't choose just anyone to carry out their plan. They'll seek out someone who is vulnerable, perhaps someone who is struggling financially, jobless, or desperate. Once they've identified their target, the manipulator presents a convincing argument. You're in a tough spot, but robbing this bank will change everything. It's the only way to escape this situation without being caught. The manipulator highlights how this single act could solve all of their financial problems, painting a picture where the risk seems negligible and the reward is vast. The reasoning presented is so compelling that the individual is swept up in the logic of it all, leading them to make choices they would have otherwise never considered. It's chilling to think how many crimes have been committed by people who were simply persuaded by a logical, if morally twisted, argument. In many cases, this technique operates behind the scenes in the most subtle of ways, making it one of the most effective yet dangerous methods of manipulation. It doesn't involve loud demands or emotional pleas, but instead relies on calm, rational explanations that appeal to your desire to make sense of the world. This method of persuasion is not just about convincing someone to do something on a whim. It's about guiding them down a path where every step seems like a logical progression toward the goal. When someone's circumstances are dire, when they feel trapped or without options, they become more susceptible to these reasoned arguments. And once the decision is made, they often feel justified in their actions, believing they've come to their own conclusion, when in reality, they've been carefully guided into making a choice that benefits the manipulator. In modern life, we encounter this tactic more frequently than we may realize. Whether it's a business deal, a personal relationship, or even a political campaign, reasoned persuasion is often at play, shaping our decisions with carefully constructed arguments that seem irrefutable. As we navigate through the complexities of life, it's crucial to remain vigilant and aware of how reasoning is used to sway us. Ask yourself, when you're faced with a difficult decision, is the reason being presented truly in your best interest, or is it an argument that serves someone else's agenda? In our modern, fast-paced world, it's easy to become entranced by well-constructed arguments, but always remember, just because something sounds logical doesn't mean it's right. Stay grounded in your values and question the motives behind the reasoned explanations you encounter. When you can spot these manipulative tactics, you'll be better equipped to protect yourself from making decisions that are not truly yours to make. The fourth trick is anchoring. Anchoring is a powerful psychological manipulation technique that exploits our tendency to rely heavily on the first piece of information we encounter when making decisions. This concept is rooted in the way our minds create mental reference points, known as anchors, which then influence how we evaluate subsequent information. Imagine walking into a car dealership, and the first car you're shown is a luxurious model priced at $50,000. Naturally, your mind now associates that price with the concept of a car, setting a high benchmark. But then, the salesperson shows you another car, one that costs $30,000. At first glance, that might seem like an incredible deal, even though $30,000 is still an expensive price for a car. The reality is that this perception has been manipulated by the initial anchor, the $50,000 price tag. The $30,000 car when viewed in contrast to the $50,000 one, suddenly feels like a much better deal, even though in absolute terms, it's still quite costly. This is the power of anchoring. But why does this happen? The brain seeks shortcuts to simplify complex decisions. When presented with an anchor, it uses that reference point as a framework to make sense of the next piece of information. This mental shortcut can be incredibly effective, but it also opens the door for manipulation. Salespeople, marketers, and even individuals in personal relationships know how to use this principle to sway decisions in their favor. By controlling the anchor, they can guide your judgment toward outcomes that serve their interests, not yours. This tactic is not limited to just the purchase of cars. It can be found in nearly every aspect of life, negotiations, financial transactions, and even everyday conversations. It's important to understand that while anchoring can be used to your advantage, it's also essential to recognize when it's being used against you. For instance, in business negotiations, a vendor may start by quoting an exorbitantly high price for a service or product. Then, they present a discounted price, making it appear as if you're getting a great deal, when in fact, you're still paying more than the item or service is worth. The key to avoiding being manipulated by anchoring is to develop the awareness to question the initial information you're given. Ask yourself, is this really a fair starting point? Or is this a strategy to influence my perception? This awareness can be the difference between making an informed decision and being swayed by an artificial benchmark that benefits someone else. To counteract the power of anchoring, it's also beneficial to arm yourself with alternative perspectives and data. This might mean researching comparable prices, speaking with multiple vendors, or simply taking a step back to evaluate your options without the influence of a misleading anchor. Being conscious of how anchors work in everyday interactions helps you take back control, ensuring that your decisions are based on thoughtful analysis rather than this psychological manipulation. As you begin to recognize the anchors around you, you'll also begin to see how they shape the decisions of those around you. Have you ever been in a situation where you walked into a meeting or conversation with a certain expectation, only to have that expectation shifted after hearing just one initial piece of information? That's anchoring in action. Understanding this psychological tool not only helps you make better decisions for yourself, but it also gives you a deeper insight into how others may use it to influence you. Remember, the more aware you become of these psychological tricks, the better equipped you'll be to navigate the complex world of decision-making. You don't need to fall victim to manipulation. You can be the one to recognize the subtle cues and choose your path wisely. By learning to identify anchoring, you're taking a step toward making more rational, informed decisions, no matter what situation you find yourself in. So next time you're faced with a decision, whether it's making a big purchase, negotiating a deal, or even just evaluating someone else's opinion, ask yourself, what's the anchor here, and how is it affecting my judgment? By questioning the influence of these psychological tactics, you'll find yourself making choices that truly align with your best interests. What are some experiences you've had where you feel you've been influenced by an anchor? Let me know your thoughts in the comments below. Your insight might help others recognize the power of anchoring in their own lives. The fifth trick is going slightly wrong. The fifth trick is going slightly wrong, a subtle yet powerful psychological manipulation technique that operates quietly in the background but is always effective. This trick involves providing just a bit of wrong information with full confidence. The beauty of the strategy lies in its ability to make the target eager to correct you, and in doing so, they reveal valuable truths and additional details. Skilled manipulators often use this method to gather crucial information, but it can be used by anyone who knows how to apply it. Take a simple example. Imagine a neighbour's aunt wants to learn about the academic performance of a child who lives next door. The aunt could ask, "So, how did David do in his exams?" By phrasing it like this, she has planted a seed of doubt, creating room for the neighbour to correct her. Maybe the neighbour responds, "I heard David topped the class." With that piece of information, the aunt can then ask, "Did David really top the class? Or did he score fewer marks than last time or more? Now, without even realizing it, the neighbor is revealing more details than initially intended, including whether David topped the class and perhaps some personal information that might not have been shared otherwise. This technique works because people are naturally inclined to correct mistakes, especially when they're confident they have the right answer. It taps into a deep psychological need to feel accurate and knowledgeable, often pushing them to volunteer information they otherwise might keep to themselves. Now, you might be wondering, how does this apply to you? Whether you're in business negotiations, navigating relationships, or simply trying to gain insight into someone's thoughts, understanding and using this psychological trick can give you a distinct advantage. It is essential, however, to use it with care. If the person you're speaking to has also watched this video, they might recognize the tactic, and your subtle manipulation could backfire. But don't let that scare you off. With the right approach, this technique can be seamlessly integrated into your conversations. Start by making an innocent, slightly off statement. Nothing too outlandish, but enough to prompt the other person to correct you. Remember, the goal isn't to deceive them, but rather to lead them to reveal information that they might not have shared otherwise. The key here is to give the impression of not knowing fully and let the other person do the work. This puts them in a position where they feel responsible for providing the correct version of the truth. The power of this trick lies in its simplicity. By asking a question that seems to have an error, you disarm the other person, making them feel compelled to correct you, often with far more information than they intended. It's an effective way to unlock secrets and uncover truths, whether you're using it in casual conversations, interviews, or high-stakes negotiations. The next time you're having a conversation and want to learn more than what's on the surface, try using this technique. It's an easy way to subtly manipulate the conversation in your favor, gaining deeper insights without the other person even realizing it. But remember, like any tool, it's important to wield this technique responsibly. When used correctly, it can give you a competitive edge and help you uncover valuable details. But when misused, it could damage your relationship with others. Keep this in mind as you integrate dark psychology techniques into your daily interactions. As with all forms of psychological influence, timing, subtlety, and empathy are key to using them effectively. Now, here's a question for you. Do you think you could use this trick in your everyday life to gain deeper insight into the people around you? If you agree with the power of this technique, share your thoughts in the comments below, and let's discuss how you could use it to your advantage. And remember, knowledge is power, so don't hesitate to like, comment, and subscribe for more psychological strategies that can help you take control of your life and relationships. Hey, thank you so much for sticking around and watching until the end. I hope you found today's exploration of dark psychology tricks as insightful and empowering as I did when I first started learning about these fascinating concepts. It's not every day that you come across information that can change the way you think about the world and your interactions with others, but that's exactly what understanding these psychological strategies can do. What we've gone over today is just the tip of the iceberg in the vast and complex world of dark psychology. These tricks, ranging from subtle manipulations in everyday conversations to much more sophisticated psychological tactics, have been used throughout history to shape human behavior and decision-making. While some may use these techniques with bad intentions, knowing them equips you with the knowledge to protect yourself from being a victim. It's about awareness, and the more aware you are, the less likely you are to fall prey to these manipulations. But beyond protection, understanding dark psychology is also about gaining deeper insight into human interactions and social dynamics. Once you understand how these tactics work, you'll see them playing out in real time, whether in the office, at home, or even among friends. Recognizing things like gaslighting, emotional manipulation, or subtle mind games can make all the difference in how you respond to situations and how you safeguard your mental space. It's not just about protecting yourself from others, it's about gaining the upper hand in your own life, so you can make decisions based on your true desires and goals, not on someone else's manipulation. However, it's also important to remember that knowledge comes with responsibility. As we dive deeper into these psychological tricks, we must be cautious in how we use this knowledge. You don't want to use these tactics to manipulate others. Instead, use them as a shield to protect your mind and your energy. Knowing how these tricks work doesn't mean you should play the same game. It means you are in control of your own mind, and you're able to recognize when others try to take that control away. So, what do you do with all this information now? Use it wisely. Be mindful of the interactions around you. Pay attention to the words, the subtle behaviors, and the psychological moves that may be unfolding without you even realizing it. But above all, trust yourself and your instincts. The more you learn about dark psychology, the more you'll trust your ability to navigate the complexities of human behavior. If this video resonated with you and you want to explore even more aspects of dark psychology or other fascinating psychological principles, I want to hear from you. Please drop a comment below and share your thoughts. What did you find most surprising? What dark psychology tactic did you find most intriguing? Let's get a conversation started. If you enjoyed this video, don't forget to hit the like button and share it with someone who could benefit from this knowledge. And, of course, if you haven't already, make sure to subscribe so you never miss an update. There's so much more we'll dive into in future videos. Thank you for being here with me today. Your time is valuable, and I truly appreciate you spending it learning, growing, and becoming more aware. I'm excited for what's to come. Until next time, stay sharp, stay aware, and keep mastering your mind. Take care, my friends, and I'll see you in the next video.